Scientology facilities in Tennessee have been closed after police found patients who were being held against their will. A little bit more on this. Police discovered these facilities, which were no more than tiny cabins and one double-wide trailer concealed in the wilderness and heavily secured. They described the scenes as a gated makeshift paddock secured externally with a steel latch. The authorities found out about the cabins when a man inside managed to call 911. When police arrived, the man was looking out through a plexiglass window. Yeah, sounds like something out of a horror movie. After assessing the scene, the man was taken to an emergency room at a local hospital for care. When police later returned to the cabin and trailer armed with a search warrant, they discovered people hastily packing up and moving out all contents of the facilities. Later on, when they did a full evaluation of the area, they found another patient who was a woman. She's also now been taken into custody. Now, who's to blame for this? The charges, the charge.
Scientologists.
Yeah, we solved it. The charged suspects are Dennis Flamand and Hans Snyder Little, who both pleaded guilty to 2 counts of false imprisonment, and Mark Valliers, who was charged with 2 felonies of facilitation of kidnapping.
False imprisonment, I was going to say, I'm glad the kidnapping part came there, but I mean, you lock a guy in a place for 9 months, that's kidnapping.
Yes. Yeah, this is a really horrifying story. I think what struck me was that apparently these people were called patients. They were being treated and were given some sort of undisclosed medicine for undisclosed reasons. I'm sure something very vague. And they were being held in basically a cabin with a single bed, single sheet, and a bathroom, which was in the facility. It is something straight out of a horror movie.
Now I'm going to back up because again, they're near the Scientology location. We don't know that these were Scientologists or that Scientologists are doing that. Well, right, that'll have to be
They're run by the Church of Scientology. We know that.
It does say that? Okay.
Yeah. A group of psychiatric facilities owned and run by the Church of Scientology.
Well, they closed that. We don't know that the Church of Scientology
was involved in
the
kidnapping,
separate, locking them up separate, even though Tony Ortega has reported on these for some time. So we'll find that out. I was just kidding when I say to blame the Scientologists. We'll see what happens.
They'll come from.
But what is true about Scientology is it's not hard, and it's the same thing that was true of Donald Trump. Like what I don't get and what staggers me about Scientologists, and I get some people have been helped by it, just like some people are helped by a lot of things. First of all, Scientology, as we know, is at war with psychiatry, right? So it'd be interesting to me if that they're giving them drugs would seem to be exactly what Scientology doesn't do. So I'm totally interested in finding out more of the story, what's true, what's not, what's being perhaps misreported in the early days. But if you watched Donald Trump from the moment he ran for president, I think a sane, natural person says, that guy's crazy, or that guy is unsubstantial, that guy's not a serious person. You see 2 minutes of 2 seconds of David Miscavige, the Scientology leader, and you're like, oh, he's a lunatic, right? And why would anyone take him seriously? So what's weird is that seemingly stable people, good people, people who we could be friends with, I have no doubt that there are Scientologists who are fun and nice, and they go out and they have a good time, and they're really great to their friends, but somehow you got tricked, because this kind of stuff is nonsense. So it doesn't surprise me at all that Tony Ortega, who reported these things might exist, that it turns out they do, and that somehow there's value, and they think, oh no, we'll lock this guy up.
Well, I think, since you brought up the comparison of Trump and how people were, tricked into thinking that he would look out for their best interests, I think the one similarity that you see between 2 demographics, the demographic that's bought into Scientology and the demographic that's bought into Trump, is that these are people who might feel like they need some sort of help in their lives, right?
Sure,
and
definitely.
So with the electorate, the electorate that supported Trump, they were tired of a system that they felt rightfully so was ignoring them and their problems, and they wanted a politician that at least said that he was gonna look out for them. And I think the same thing happens with Scientology. I think they specifically target people. I mean, it's huge in LA, and it's particularly huge in LA among people who are trying to be actors and actresses, people who wanna break through in the entertainment industry. And I think that they're told that this will somehow help them. and they're looking for help. They're looking for some sort of answer.
Yeah.
And I think that's the similarity between the two.
I'll go with you guys so far on the Trump Scientology comparison, but where this fork in the road happens for me is that when you become a Scientologist, at some point in time, you do commit to the idea that aliens were on this planet and died, and their souls are buried, and we're either a good alien or a bad alien, something along those lines. If I'm getting it wrong, it's because it's a super confusing cult, and that's on me.
Can I be a bad alien?
Can I be a naughty alien? But the thing with Trump, I think that there are his followers, his believers, if you will. A lot of them were grounded in wanting more real, concrete things. So you were pointing out like actors and actresses in Los Angeles who can kind of suspend their disbelief that maybe if they buy into this religion and this cult, that they could have the sort of success that we see from Alex from Orange Is the New Black and Tom Cruise and these other, Leah Remini before she left the church, these successful actors and actresses. Whereas, Trump supporters are like, I just want a job, man. I don't know what to believe. I think that the basis for that belief, there's one that was, if misguided, was based in like real concrete issues, and then in Scientology, there's like there is this crazy belief system. No matter how you swing it,
it takes a while for you to get to that belief system. I think
it's true. It does take a while to get to the alien level,
and then you're already like deep in it, right? You've already been held captive,
and you've already given so much of your money. You're like, fuck. I mean, now I will.
I didn't mean that. You guys make great points. I only meant that. My comparison wasn't about the type of people who follow or that there are real similarities between Trump and, I just mean, I look at Trump for an eighth of a second and I'm like, huge fraud. How does everybody not see this? Same thing with David Miscavige. How do you not see that this is a fraud instantly? Not that you wouldn't want the things that the people, I get wanting those things.
Right.
And so it's not like the same with other Republicans who would, George W. Bush followers, you could argue, voted against their own interest. But I don't think that it was like, you didn't, well, he's also with him, you were like, that guy's dumb. But
Mandela.
no, right. I mean, I'm saying my budget man. But it's a different kind of thing with Trump. It was glaring, much more glaring way with Trump. And I just don't. I'm still stunned that people. They don't see that. And I guess it's been true forever. Like
I was going to say, Ben, it's amazing what a charismatic, maniacal, egomaniac of a leader can get people to do.
Yeah, right. There have been preachers since biblical times who have, who other guys walking down the street look at that crazy guy, and then like, oh no, he's got a following.
Young Turks now has over 6 billion lifetime views. You know who did that? You did that. We're now larger than CNN, ABC, you name a news network online, we're larger than them. And you built all that as everyone scoffed and didn't believe. And here we are, guys, thanks to you. Build independent media together with us at tytnetwork.com/join.